Troy Aikman was born on November 21, 1966, in West Covina, California, but it wasn't long before his family packed up and moved to Henrietta, Oklahoma, a small town where life moved slower and football ran deep. It was there, among dusty fields and Friday night lights, that young Troy began shaping the quiet resolve that would one day define his career. He grew up tough, not just physically, but mentally. His father was a strict man who valued discipline and effort, and Troy quickly learned that nothing in life would be handed to him. Every yard would have to be earned. In Henrietta, Aikman was more than a quarterback. He was the hope of a town. He led his high school team with poise and accuracy, drawing the attention of college scouts from across the country. But it wasn't just football. He was a standout in baseball too, drafted by the New York Mets. Still, his heart belonged to the gridiron. When the offers came in, he made a bold decision. He committed to the University of Oklahoma, a powerhouse known for its option-style offense. It was a curious fit for a pocket passer like Aikman, but he welcomed the challenge. He earned the starting job as a sophomore under legendary coach Barry Switzer. But in October 1985, everything changed. Aikman suffered a broken ankle in a game against Miami, a devastating injury that ended his season and raised serious doubts about his future. With Oklahoma firmly committed to the wishbone offense and young Jamel Holloway emerging as a star, Aikman knew it was time to move on. In a rare move for a player of his caliber, he transferred to UCLA, where he could play in a pro-style system more suited to his strengths. At UCLA, Aikman flourished. He studied the game with the intensity of a professional. His footwork, decision-making, and arm strength made him one of the top prospects in the country. He led the Bruins to back-to-back 10-win seasons and earned the 1988 Davey O'Brien Award as the nation's top quarterback. The NFL took notice. In the 1989 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys, coming off a dismal 3-13 season, held the first overall pick. They needed a savior, and they found one in Troy Aikman. But greatness never comes easy. Aikman's rookie year was brutal. The Cowboys were in rebuilding mode, and the offensive line offered little protection. He was sacked 41 times and lost all 11 games he started. But even as the losses piled up, Aikman never wavered. He studied harder, trained longer, took every hit, and got back up. He wasn't just learning the NFL, he was surviving it. Behind the scenes, something special was taking shape. The Cowboys had hired Jimmy Johnson, Aikman's former college rival from the University of Miami, as head coach. They drafted Michael Irvin the year before, and in 1990, they selected Emmitt Smith. Together, these three would form the core of one of the greatest dynasties in football history. By 1991, things were clicking. The Cowboys were no longer a doormat. They were a team on the rise. Aikman had matured into a field general, directing the offense with surgical precision. He wasn't flashy. He didn't pad his stats. He just made the right throw at the right time. He read defenses like a book and delivered strikes under pressure. By 1992, it all came together. The Cowboys finished 13-3 and steamrolled their way to Super Bowl 27. On the biggest stage of his life, Aikman was flawless. He threw for 273 yards and 4 touchdowns, earning Super Bowl MVP honors and leading Dallas to a 52-17 rout of the Buffalo Bills. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, the Cowboys were champions again. And Aikman stood at the center of it all, not as a celebrity, but as a commander. They weren't done. The next year, Dallas repeated as champions, once again defeating the Bills. Aikman's numbers weren't gaudy, but his leadership was unquestioned. He controlled the offense like a maestro, elevating the players around him and mastering the moment. In 1995, they did it again, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers in Super Bowl 30. It was Aikman's 3rd ring in 4 years. He joined the ranks of legends, not for throwing the most touchdowns, but for winning the games that mattered most. Off the field, Aikman was private, reserved. He wasn't the kind of quarterback who courted the spotlight. He let his game speak for him. His relationships with coaches and teammates were built on respect, not noise. And when adversity came, as it always does, he handled it with quiet strength. He battled concussions. He played through pain. He absorbed hits that would sideline others. And every time, he showed back up, steady and unshaken. He didn't need the spotlight. He had the locker room. His teammates followed him because they knew he would never ask for anything he wasn't willing to give. Coaches trusted him because he saw the field with a clarity few possessed. And fans loved him because he delivered exactly what Dallas craved: championships. Yet, even in triumph, the toll of the game was relentless. By the late 1990s, the dynasty began to unravel. Jimmy Johnson was gone. The roster aged. Injuries mounted. Aikman's body began to betray him. He suffered multiple concussions, and the hits kept coming. In 2000, after a hard blow to the head in a game against the Washington Redskins, Aikman's career reached its end. At just 34 years old, he retired from the NFL. But he didn't leave the game. He transitioned into broadcasting, joining the Fox NFL commentary team not long after his retirement. At first, some doubted whether Aikman's quiet demeanor would translate to the microphone. Could someone so reserved, so calculated in his speech, bring energy and insight to the fast-paced world of sports television? But as he had done so many times in his life, Aikman proved his doubters wrong, not with flash, but with substance. In the booth, he brought the same calm insight, discipline, and preparation that had defined his career on the field. He wasn't there to entertain with loud takes or to stir controversy. He was there to explain the game, and he did it better than almost anyone. Week after week, he studied game film. He prepared for broadcasts with the meticulousness of a player prepping for Sunday. He understood offensive schemes, defensive shifts, and the subtle psychological battles between quarterbacks and coordinators. His delivery was clear and measured, never forced, never exaggerated. When Troy Aikman spoke, fans listened because they knew he wasn't guessing. He was teaching, and like everything he did in football, he approached broadcasting with respect for the game, for the players, and for the audience. Alongside Joe Buck, he formed one of the most iconic commentary duos in NFL history. Their chemistry was natural, their balance seamless. Buck with his cadence and timing, Aikman with his insight and quiet authority. Through 3 decades of Sunday matchups, playoff epics, and Super Bowls, they became the soundtrack of American football. It was a second act that few could have imagined during his playing days, but one that cemented his place in the game even after his last pass was thrown. In 2006, the game gave back. Aikman was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. He was a first-ballot selection, not for gaudy statistics, but for undeniable impact. His speech that day wasn't a victory lap. It was a moment of deep reflection and gratitude. He didn't speak of his own greatness. He thanked others. He talked about his teammates, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Jay Novacek, the men he bled with on the field. He thanked his coaches, particularly Jimmy Johnson, the fiery leader who helped restore the Cowboys to prominence. He honored his family, the people who had shaped him long before the NFL ever knew his name. And he paid tribute to the game itself, a game that had given him structure, challenge, purpose, and an unbreakable bond with millions. Troy Aikman never led the league in passing yards. He wasn't the kind of quarterback who lit up fantasy football scoreboards. But he led when it counted. In moments of consequence, when the lights were brightest and the pressure most suffocating, he was at his best. He delivered with consistency, courage, and poise. And in a sport that too often rewards noise and bravado, he was a man of quiet thunder, a force who didn't have to raise his voice to command attention. In many ways, Aikman was a paradox. He was the quarterback for America's team under the heaviest spotlight in professional sports. But he never craved that spotlight. He embraced the responsibility, carried the expectations, but never let them define him. He was content to be the rock in the storm, the unshakable center of a team full of talent and personality. He let Irvin handle the quotes, Emmitt handle the swagger. Troy handled the game, the reads, the throws, the wins. And when he did, 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. A record of 11-5 in the playoffs. A stretch of dominance that helped restore the Dallas Cowboys as the gold standard of NFL success. His name became synonymous with professionalism, with steadiness, with leadership that didn't need to be loud to be effective. After football, Aikman's presence only grew. Through his business ventures, his charitable work, and his continued presence on television, he showed that legacy isn't just about what you do, but how you carry yourself while doing it. He never became a caricature of his former self. He didn't chase attention with outlandish statements or social media antics. He remained, as ever, composed, thoughtful, intentional. He invested in health-focused businesses. He launched initiatives to support children's hospitals. He lent his voice and name to causes he believed in, but always with sincerity, never with self-interest. His brand became integrity, and in an era saturated with flash, that made him rare. Troy Aikman wasn't built for highlight reels. He was built for fourth quarters, for third and longs with the season on the line, for Super Bowls that demanded ice in the veins. His legacy isn't measured in touchdowns, it's measured in trust. How much his teammates trusted him to lead. How much his coaches trusted him to execute. How much the city of Dallas trusted him to bring them back to glory. To this day, he remains one of the most respected quarterbacks in NFL history. Not because he filled up stat sheets, but because he emptied himself into the team. Every ounce of focus, every bit of discipline, every inch of grit. He represented the best of what a leader could be. Tough but humble, sharp but steady, confident but never arrogant. He never let the moment overwhelm him. He never made it about himself. And in the process, he built a career and a life defined by something far more valuable than flash: trust. In the booth, he brings that same trust to viewers. Fans know they're not just hearing opinion, they're hearing perspective. Decades of experience, countless hours of film, a mind shaped by triumph and tested by adversity. He speaks less often than others, but when he does, it matters. His peers admire him. His successors cite him. And young quarterbacks, even if they've never seen his prime, still hear the stories. About the guy who didn't smile much, but always showed up. About the guy who threw the ball where only his receiver could get it, again and again. About the quarterback who didn't celebrate touchdowns, but celebrated teammates. The one who played the most glamorous position in football, but carried himself like a lineman. And when history remembers the great quarterbacks, the record breakers, the gunslingers, the improvisers, and the generals, Troy Aikman will occupy a space that's uniquely his own. He wasn't the most athletic. He wasn't the most vocal. But he may have been the most dependable, the most professional, the most quietly brilliant. He was the kind of quarterback every coach dreams of and every teammate wants in the huddle when the clock is ticking down. He was the kind of leader who didn't talk about standards, he set them. Who didn't command respect with words, but with presence. He didn't chase greatness. He became it, brick by brick, throw by throw, game by game. Not by being the loudest, but by being the most locked in, the most prepared, the most committed to doing it the right way. And through it all, he reminded the world that sometimes the loudest statement comes from the one who says the least. In the story of the NFL, not just the highlight reels and stat lines, but the chapters about culture, character, and class, Troy Aikman will always have his page. A quarterback who didn't just win games, he led men. Who didn't just lift trophies, he elevated the standard. That name is Troy Aikman.